هذا البيت كان متخبين فيه أنا وولادي وأخويا موسى. بكاليث هنا معيد أخوي موسى مشاكل نتونس بالله فيه هذا البيت. أجوا قالوا لما كنا بلا بيت كنا مش كسر خبطنا الكنبلة وجينا صورتنا وبنت صورت لمسحوا ولادي وكانوا بعد ما راحت المراكة الحالة كسروا الباب عليهم وطلعونا بدهم يقتلوا أخوي مسدبة فيه على وجهه اللي يقتلوه. وتناولت 250 ليرة من عدة وقلت يا خواجة بس مشان الله الطالب اللي قلت للشي قال لي كتير انت كويس هات المصاري وبارس في اخوتي الحنو شو تسويش في اخوتي الحنو اجراك يا ويلي هي زي على السلام كحلي وضلت يهود حط له السير ويكون اصلا في موسى كداب حط له 5 مليون تحت راسه.
The Israeli army cleansed much of the territory and took over a large part of the designated Palestinian state.
This I picked up in a home of a wonderful Christian family. And this is the kind of armor-piercing weaponry that's being used against civilians, innocent civilians.
And the bottom line in all of this is to make Palestinians leave the country. It's a very hard term, I know, but in a sense it's a kind of ethnic cleansing.
The very first point I want to make is the distinction between Judaism and Zionism. The Jewish faith is a faith that is over 3,000 years old and is very similar to ours for obvious reasons. We believe in the same God, the same one true God. We share the same prophets and many of the same food laws as well. In this sense, they are our brothers in faith as well as our brothers in humanity. Zionism is actually a nationalist ideology that began approximately 100 years ago among non-religious Jews. Wealthy Jewish families like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers championed the doctrines of the secular Jewish nationalist Theodor Herzl to push forward a movement that would end up creating a Jewish homeland. We are not here to condemn nationalism, only to help you discern between it and the Jewish religion, which are two entirely different things. Sadly, there are many religious leaders that have adopted Zionist philosophies and have been preaching them in the synagogue for generations now, much like the Taliban and Salafi and Wahhabi sects within our own religion. In 1975, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution that designated Zionism as a form of racism and racial discrimination. This would not have been the case if the nationalists would have accepted the land offered to them by the Russians or the Ottomans, to which they had a guarantee of safe passage from Hitler. The problem is that their design has always been and continues to be based on the displacement or cleansing of the Holy Land of Palestinians that have lived there for 1,000 years and in some cases even longer. It is this ethnic cleansing and genocide that we stand against. We are here to remind you that it is your duty, if you call yourself a Muslim and if you say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, to stand with us and to do anything and everything in your power to protect the Madlum and to disable the Dhalim.
Okay, so we're going to start with Coca-Cola. It's a big one. In 1997, the government of Israel Economic Mission honored Coca-Cola for refusing Arab League's request to boycott Israel. Every year, Coca-Cola receives American Israel Chamber of Commerce Award, which honors companies that contribute the most to the Israeli economy. In 2009, a Coca-Cola sponsored award went to the America's pro-Israel lobby for the Senate to reject the UN call for immediate ceasefire and endorse the continuation of the Israel military assault on Gaza. Also in 2009, Coca-Cola hosted a special reception to honor General Ben Eliezer, who is a wanted war criminal. He was responsible for the execution of over 300 Egyptian prisoners of war. Coca-Cola owns dairy farms in illegal settlements as well. Okay, so next, Starbucks. Howard Schultz, the chairman of Starbucks, is an active Zionist. In 1998, he was honored by the Jerusalem Fund of Aish HaTorah with the Israel 50th Anniversary Friend of Zion Tribute Award for his services to the Zionist state in playing a key role promoting a close alliance between the U.S. and Israel. The Fund of Aish HaTorah funds Israeli arms fairs chaired by Shaul Mofaz, who is also known as the Butcher of Jenin. They have also opened a Starbucks in Afghanistan for the US invaders to feel more at home. Nestle is another big one. They own 50.1% of Israeli food maker Osem Investments. It is investing millions into a new research and development center in Israel. In 1998, Peter Brabeck Letmaith, on behalf of Nestle, received the Jubilee Award by Netanyahu. This is the highest tribute ever awarded by the State of Israel in recognition of those individuals and organizations that strengthen the Israeli economy through trade and investments. Okay, Intel is their first development center outside of the US, opened up in Israel in 1974. Their plant, called Lachish Kiryat Gat, which opened in February 1999, was built on land confiscated from Palestinians. This land used to be a village of 2,000 people living in 300 houses, 2 mosques, and 1 school. The population is still not allowed to return to this day. Oh, actually, go back. Sorry. Okay, Microsoft, they have also invested heavily in Israel. Some companies try to do this quietly, however, not Microsoft. They even have billboards up in occupied land stating, "From the depths of our heart, thanks to the Israeli Defense Forces." They provide free educational training for Israeli Defense Forces, which they do not offer any other army. Actually, I'm just going to say one more thing about Microsoft. Microsoft and Intel, I grouped them together because these fall under the classification of unavoidable necessities in North America. Any computer you can buy with an AMD processor will have Windows on it, and every Apple computer you buy will have Intel processor. Unless you're able to build your own computer and put a different operating system like Linux on it, you're stuck with one of the two. So lots of programs needed for professionals do not work on other operating systems. So in this case, it would be allowed. I will get into more detail with what would be allowed and what won't when we get to the slide about the fatwas. Okay, Time Warner is a big one. Since Time Warner was purchased by AOL, it is also one of the companies we must boycott. The CEO of AOL has received the Jubilee Award for heavy investment in trade in Israel, strengthening the Israeli government, and is honored for this at various occasions in political gatherings. The next one is Danone. This company is also one of the several to receive the Jubilee Award. Aside from this, they donate heavily to charities whose sole purpose is to achieve Jewish supremacy. In the US, Danone is known as Danone and is not to be mistaken for a separate company. They are the same company. So next we have L'Oreal. In 1995, they were fined $1.4 million by the US for writing a letter to the Arab League claiming to have stopped production in Israel. Since then, they have openly become friends with Israel and invested heavily in their economy. They also have received the Jubilee Award for their hard work in supporting the Zionist regime. American Jewish Congress has expressed, and I quote, "keen satisfaction that L'Oreal has become a warm friend of Israel." So next we have Estee Lauder. Just to let you know, it's only the cosmetics of these companies that the logos are here for. It's not their clothing or anything like that. The chairman, Ronald Lauder, also one-time chairman of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. He is the current president of the Jewish National Fund, a quasi-government agency whose main function is to legitimize the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land. This man's views are sometimes even more extreme than the Israeli government's. Okay, so Sara Lee, they have Haynes Champion. I forgot to write down exactly what puts them in there, but on the handout that you guys have, there's links that'll take you to more information about Sara Lee. So Limited Brands, the founder, president, and CEO, Les Wexner, is a Zionist, and he claims it very proudly. He is on the board of directors of EMET, whose function is to ensure that all media in the U.S. stays biased in favor of Israel. In 1984, Les created the Wexner Foundation, whose mission statement is strengthening Jewish leadership in North America and Israel. So now we have a couple of fatwas here from Ayatollah Sistani and Khamenei. Ayatollah Sistani says, "It is not permissible for a Muslim to buy products of the countries that are in a state of war with Islam and Muslims, for example, Israel." And Khamenei says, "The purchase of any item which helps strengthen Zionism is not permissible unless it reaches the point of necessities." These fatwas are very straightforward and hard to misinterpret. Now I want to focus on the point Khamenei makes about necessity. Islam is not here to make your life hard. When it comes to certain products where there is no alternative, it then becomes permissible to purchase them. However, when there is an alternative, it then becomes haram to purchase these products. For example, if you're at a restaurant and all they have is Coca-Cola products, ask for tap water because that's an alternative. It is cleaner than bottled water anyways. If you're in a food court, for example, and you order food from one place, but they only have Coca-Cola products, it does not mean that there's no alternative just because they don't offer one. Walk around the food court because I'm sure the place on the other side of the food court will offer Pepsi or other products. Laziness is not an excuse to try and bend the rules. Purchasing that Coca-Cola product is haram. This is what my family has been doing for quite some time now, and if we can do it, then so can you. Lots of people have joined this boycott, and Insha Allah, more people will join after tonight. By doing this, you are helping your Palestinian brothers and sisters who are being murdered every day. In the handout we are circulating, there is a more broad list of companies and brands as well as links to other websites which have information on this topic.
I'm a witness. I know the Arabs are very good. No problem till the Zionist movement start. My grandmother tell me before the Zionist movement start, they babysitting each other, the kids. They borrow from both each other like brothers, like brothers. The idea of Zionism to take away the land from the Palestinians, from the Arabs, is starting the whole fighting. Not Arabs is the problem, not Jews is the problem, not Judaism, not Muslim, only Zionism.
أجت قذيفة من فوق دخلت على الشباك بعدين كسرت كل الشبابيك والدار انحرقت. ليش هم كسروا غراض كسروا لعبة لسه في كتير غراض ساحوا كله رميناه على الزبالة والأواعي رميناها على الزبالة بنشحت من دور الناس أواعي للباس وحتى الأكل اللي بناكل فيه ريحته غاز ومش راضيين نصيب أواعينا وهينا لابسين غاز. لو تشموهم أواعينا خلي اليهود يجوا يشموا أواعينا ويشوفوا دارنا. كل ما نيجي نتحمم في الدار نيجي نعمل بنشوف الريحة كلها كتلتنا. أنا بروح المدرسة كل يوم بسمع الطخ. أنا بخاف من الطخ حتى بس راجف لما نشوف.
We all know that eating food that is not slaughtered according to Shari standards is haram, and such food is detrimental to the health of both your physical body and your nafs, in ways that we may or may not be able to completely fathom. Likewise, earning an income from a source that is not halal and then providing sustenance for your family with that money will be detrimental to them as well as yourself. So when our Maraja have said that it is not permissible to buy products that strengthen the Zionist regime and we buy Starbucks coffee and put it into our bodies, it can be inferred that it will be detrimental to us. Even prominent Jews like Dr. Norman Finkelstein or Professor Noam Chomsky, who you saw in one of our clips, they have stood up in a very public way against the atrocities that Israel is committing and have advocated the practice of BDS themselves, which is boycott, divestment, and sanctions. These remarks that we have prepared are what my brother and I have been able to gather from our research, and we have deduced by applying the limited logic that we are capable of comprehending ourselves. If we have said anything that is incorrect, please correct us. We are not scholars of Islamic fiqh, and we apologize in advance if we have misrepresented the ulama or their fatwas. Inshallah, the Maulana can address any discrepancies in our discourse if needed and if time permits him to do so. In closing, I would like to just add one thought for all of you to take home with you. When I buy a product that supports the Zionist regime, I'm casting a vote that says I approve of what Israel is doing. When I buy Israeli dates in Ramadan, grown in the occupied territories on a settlement in the West Bank, stolen from Arab families, I'm also paying for the bullets that penetrate the bodies of my brothers and sisters. I'm buying the fuel that goes into their giant armored bulldozer whose sole purpose is to destroy Palestinian homes. I'm paying the salary of the IDF soldiers that are oppressing Muslims and whose job description includes killing, assaulting, harassing, and just making life haram for Muslims and Christians simply because they're Palestinians. Our blessed Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Our blessed Imam sacrificed his life so that we would understand freedom and recognize oppression when we see it. Thank you for your time. May Allah increase our knowledge. May He give us the strength to stand up to every Yazid and Sufyani in this world. May Allah keep us safe from the Dajjal and his devious system and hasten the reappearance of our beloved 12th Imam. May Allah grant us the opportunity and honor of doing ziyarat of him and assisting him in any way we can before we leave this world. Ilahiyah.